for people like you and I, as they continue to work and hone in on their skills, this is an opportunity to show that we are worth, people looking at and working with and investing with. And
hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
All right, welcome back to the Gentle Art of Crushing It podcast. My name is Randy Smith, and I'll be your host today. And really excited to have kind of a colleague, I guess, a member of a mastermind that I'm a part of, Tony Johnson, with us today. Tony is the president of Timeless Properties Construction. He's also the president of Timeless Capital Investments, and he's also a podcast host for Carolina Commercial Real Estate Connection. So, Tony, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Hey, Randy, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Well, hey, why don't we jump right in? Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you found yourself doing what you're doing today?
Sure. Yeah. So I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is on the eastern side of North Carolina, about 2 hours east of Raleigh, North Carolina. I moved here in 96, went to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, graduated from there, became a bartender during college, and then opened a bar right out of college. So that was my first business venture with some partners. We had a great time doing that, and I enjoyed it a lot. Exited that in 2007 and sold building materials before I exited, and continued that through 2007, 2008. During selling those building materials, I was watching all these contractors come in. They were making killings of money, just blowing up everywhere I turned. And I thought, man, I should be able to do this. And a lot of these guys didn't seem to know too much, and they were doing so good because it was just a great environment. So I got my license, and sure enough, right after I got my license, I went to a couple bid opportunities, and then the market's collapsing. And so it became where everyone was out there making money everyone was out dying to get it work. And then everybody went out of business, basically. So tons of these builders that were hugely successful were instantly gone. So it was a big learning lesson. And I had to really start looking for any type of job, which started in basically school system work, small government work, HUD housing, foreclosure work, stuff like that. But I was able to grasp and get into the commercial construction world and build up a reputation for doing good work, and started really small and worked my way up through it over the years, and have continued on through today. So, and have grown significantly. So now we have a team of 18 people and are a large commercial builder in my area. We do a lot of franchise upfits, new commercial development, renovations of commercial buildings, and that's our main focus.
I love it. I love it. So, yeah, I know it's interesting. When in my W-2 time, I was a sales guy focusing on general contractors and subcontractors specifically, and kind of got to watch that from the sidelines, how you had a bunch of companies out there that were just chasing every dollar they can get. And then all of a sudden, things go south in 2008, 9, 10, even 11, I guess. And the folks that were left afterwards were the folks that I found had kind of set the moat around the business, were pretty well capitalized, and ultimately were the better or the best of the operators that were out there beforehand. So, what a heck of a time to start a construction business! I can only imagine that was stressful times.
Yeah, it was definitely stressful times, and you look at, there's a lot of similarities with the situation that we find ourselves in again today from then. Now, obviously, it's not the same because it was a little different on the environment. The lending has tightened up, though. The major difference was there was a ton of overbuild in that. There's a shortage, right? But the main similarity is there was a lot of people that really didn't have the business being in the business and were
Hmm.
in for the wrong reasons or not really doing a great job, but appeared to be doing great because the market was so great. And you see a lot of that today where you
Yep.
have for someone that's invested in someone, they might have done a passive investment in a project, and the operator didn't have that experience, didn't have the right due diligence, and so now they're in a bad spot. And then it's put somebody that's thought about passive investing and maybe saw them doing great and just jumped on board with them, maybe not doing enough due diligence in that. And that's the same thing with construction. So very similar from both
Yep.
facets.
Yeah, no, that's interesting that you say that. It was more of there was overbuild before, and now there's actually underbuild. There's a huge disparity there between the supply and demand on housing, um, even industrial, certain other asset classes as well. Now, you talk a little bit about the construction space then. So were you seeing even in the last few years that there were a lot of folks coming into the construction space that really had no business being there as well? Or are
Oh
you saying
yeah.
more towards the operator standpoint? Okay.
No, it's the same thing. I mean, I'm sure, it's in a lot of these industries. So everything within the real estate industry, it was real estate agents, mortgage brokers. I mean, the whole gamut. There have been a ton of new people coming in all the different facets of the real estate industry, right? And
Yeah.
so the people that are going to have longevity in any of these industries understand that this is a slow marathon. It's not a race. You don't just dive into a bunch of things. You have to properly underwrite deals. You have to properly price jobs. You don't just price them at nothing and go out of business. Real estate agents, you can't just sit waiting for the phone to ring. You have to build relationships. You have to network around. So all these industries are interrelated. And so, you've seen it on multiple facets. I mean, mortgage brokers have been hit extremely hard. I think real estate
Yeah.
agents are getting hit really hard right now. Contractors, if you're in the top 5 or 10%, this is an opportunity for you to grow in any of these industries, because as some of these people that really weren't fully vested start to drop out, dilute, and go and pursue something else, it really creates some consolidation in each one of these industries, and the strong will
Yep.
survive and they're going to start to thrive. And so that's what I feel like is going to happen for people like you and I as they continue to work and hone in on their skills. This is an opportunity to show that we are worth people looking at and working with and investing with and whatever else.
Yeah, no doubt. I tell folks all the time, if times are a little more difficult in these days, no doubt the last 6 to 9 to 12 months, but if we can make it through this period, just imagine, the strength that we'll have as we come out the backside of this. So yeah, very good.
Absolutely. It's a good time to grow right now too, because you can find some great people that maybe, they weren't working for a great person. And so it presents an opportunity, for you to find some great people to join your team. And, there's a good bit of opportunity that comes with a downturn like this, if you look at
Love
it in
it.
a positive light.
Are you interested in real estate investing but don't know where to get started or think you don't have the time or money? Are you stuck in your W-2 because the golden handcuffs make it hard to walk away? If this sounds like you, check out impactequity.net and schedule some time to talk with the founder, Randy Smith. Randy went from massive income to leaving his W-2 through passive income, and he can help you do the same. www.impactequity.net.
Well, I know in the construction space, really almost any industry or sector at this point, there was challenges finding personnel. For the last number of years, are you finding that it is easier to find personnel for your projects and subcontractors, or is that still a challenge?
So subcontractor wise, it has flipped. So we would
Okay.
send out bids and get zero responses. We would call and be begging to just get someone to even give us a proposal, to
Hmm.
now we're getting a lot of proposals, getting a lot of attention, and subs are calling us looking for work. So there
Got
has
it.
been a turn, and we're in a very good market still. Obviously, everything with real estate is local, so it depends on each person's market, but ours has continued to be strong. through this. And even with that being said, I think a lot of the subcontractors, because there's so many, even with subcontractors, there's been a bunch of expansion. So everybody's opened up HVAC companies and new electricians. So, they're out, being competitive. And then they have, competitor trades that are coming in doing stuff for really inexpensive amounts to just try and stay in business. So what really is happening right now, in my opinion, is there's a lot of people that are just trying to grab at straws and keep afloat and do stuff for nothing or very little. And then
Yeah.
they're going to end up going out of business, but they're just trying to survive right now. And so we're still on the tip of the iceberg of what's really coming through this downturn. So probably in the next year, it'll start to come to fruition and we'll see a lot of
Yeah.
people going out of business.
Yeah, it seems like in the last cycle we saw smaller businesses that maybe weren't as well capitalized. They were doing everything they can just to keep their employees employed and keep the lights on. And then at some point, um, you know, some straw will fall essentially, and then it comes collapsing down pretty quickly. So now I spent a little bit of time on your website, and I noticed it looks like a large portion of the work that you've done, or at least on the portfolio page, has been kind of tenant improvement stuff. Um, and I saw some sporadic new build development stuff in there as well. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what the core focus is of your business and what that might look like moving forward, or will it likely stay the same?
Sure. I appreciate you asking that. So the core focus of our company has been for the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years, was franchise upfits. So as you said, tenant improvements. So we have done a lot of focus and a large focus on national franchises and partnering with them, newer franchises and helping them grow. So that is a big facet of what we do. Along with that, we'll do new development of the shell building, which is what we're getting into more now, and then also try and do the upfits. So it would be like a retail multi-unit shell building, and then doing the upfits on the interior. Um, we're doing multifamily development as well now, which is something that we just started doing in the past 2 years. So we're doing new ground up development on multifamily, and we're looking at some townhome development and industrial flex development. We have done some industrial flex development. Now we're looking to, self-perform industrial flex development, which is still very low vacancy in my area. There's about a less than a 1% vacancy rate. So it's still very
Wow.
strong with a lot of opportunity.
Can, can
So
you can you dig into industrial flex? That's not something we've talked a lot about on this show, but can you share with the audience kind of a high level overview of what that is and what the opportunity could be?
Sure. So it's like a mullet where you've got the business in the front and the party in the back. Is basically so an industrial flex building. You got a little bit of office space in the front. You've got your warehouse in the back, and so
Sure.
the greatest area, in my opinion, where there's opportunity is small bay flex, which would be between 1,500 to 3,000 square foot units, and you
Yep.
have between 300 to 800 square foot of office space, and then the rest is warehouse. And
Okay.
so, what this offers is a multitude. So, all small contractors, small retailers, tiny manufacturing companies, e commerce companies, landscapers, little grill companies, stone suppliers. I mean, you can be anything. Can be in these spaces, and you can also,
Yeah.
depending on the location, you can do retail with your storage areas in the back. So there's a ton of different uses for them, very inexpensive to build, comparatively speaking, uh, to other forms of construction. These, a lot of times, will be a pre-engineered metal building, and then you just frame out a little interior. You can do it with what's called a PTAC unit, or basically a window style unit of air conditioning, or you can do a small ducted system, a one bathroom, and an office, and maybe that's typically going to be about it. Then they can add on to it if they needed more space as they grow. But this is somebody, a lot of times, that's new into business, that has some equipment, So they want to store some of the equipment and they want an office space that they need a little bit conditioned, but not much. So maybe they have 2 or 3 employees. So this is,
Love it.
the heart of the American entrepreneur is starting out. This would be a great first office space, and that you can grow and expand into the space if you need more office. And dependent on the zoning of it, they'll have what's called a laydown yard, which is an exterior little fenced in area where you can keep materials. So if you're having small supplier, like you're a roofer and you have roofing materials or metals that you're keeping outside, you would have an area to lay that stuff down outside. So that's
I
the
love it.
premise of it. And it's becoming more and more popular. And it's been very uh, it's been underbuilt for the last 2 or 3 decades. And a lot of that is due to, people would go and build the multifamily. If you rezone it to multifamily, it's obviously worth more, but it's a whole different asset. These are very low management maintenance products and have good returns, and the tenants are very long term.
I love it. Yeah, and I think you mentioned something earlier on. You said that the vacancy rates are less than 1% in the market where you're at today.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a strong
And
demand.
interesting. Yeah. So I spent 10 years as a sales guy going in and out of this flex industrial buildings, chasing entrepreneurs for slinging credit cards to them, ultimately, is what I was doing. But I spent a lot of time there and saw a lot of folks, just like you said, they would start there with their new business as they grew. Then they would move and buy their own facilities as well. So now with vacancy rates like that, are you finding, is there this huge push or kind of wave of developers that are going towards that in your area, or is it still kind of this untouched, unfound opportunity at this point?
Well, there is an increase in the building of it. The challenge, and it depends on the market, obviously. So, the challenge with it is there's very limited land that is zoned industrial and has water and sewer capacity. To really be able to do an industrial project, you need water and sewer capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can build any of these buildings up to 12,000 square feet roughly without a fire suppression system or a sprinkler system. If you have to have a sprinkler system, so if it's bigger than that and you're needing a sprinkler system, you really need to have a strong water pressure, so a strong amount of water flow.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you really can't provide enough water flow to sprinkle a building, so it becomes very expensive. So that's one
Interesting.
hurdle, is having water and sewer. If you don't have water and sewer, and let's say you're buying an acre piece of land, you're going to have to dedicate a certain portion for septic. You might have to put in a stormwater pond if you don't have stormwater built into where you're developing. So these can take up a lot of room. So it makes it a challenge for these sites to work. And so, also you've got to have it in the right price point for the land for it to work, and land's overpriced right now. So all those factors have made it difficult to even develop the industrial flex product. And
Okay.
so it's limited on how much is built, which is why there's a shortage of it.
Interesting. And I see out here in Arizona, I see a lot of, I think it's called tilt building, where they bring in these slabs and then they tilt them up. But is that primarily traditional industrial, or is that also used in the industrial flex space?
That is definitely used in industrial flex space. So that's
It,
more of a large industrial building. So when you're getting to 100,000 square foot, a 200,000, 300,000 square foot building, tilt up is definitely the quickest, one of the best methods for construction. So when you're in the larger construction and larger industrial space, which is for manufacturing or just very big industrial providers coming in, that's what they're going to want to build. Um,
got
so
it.
that's a little different. So that would be more or less normally a large manufacturer or a large venue for like a convention center or something. They would do
Okay.
that product. For what I was talking about was smaller bay for just a mom and pops, like we were talking about
Got it.
small business owners. So
Yep.
that's where there's a shortage. So there's not a huge shortage of that in that style industrial, because of e-commerce has blown up so much with the Amazons of the world. All the industrial land, that's what they're building. they're building that.
Interesting.
That product type is being built, and there's not a major shortage of that. There's hundreds of thousands of square foot of that being built.
Interesting.
And the reason is because you have a large company coming in, they're going to want a 300,000 square foot building, or Amazon's building these buildings all over the place. So that there's not huge shortage on that,
Okay.
because it's a little different animal.
Interesting. So there really is a true smaller niche in this small industrial flex space where folks like yourself and many others can focus on. Interesting. Okay. Now, you mentioned a little bit too about multifamily development, potentially townhome development. Um, what's kind of the core there, or the target that you're looking for? Are these, under an acre lots? Or are they 2 to 3 acre lots? And like, how many units are you building on this typical type of project?
So the ones that we're looking at right now, the ones that we're building right now, are in our downtown area, and the lots are very, very small, very small, and
Okay.
it's very
Yeah.
expensive to build up. So we're building. We have a 4-story, 16-unit building we're doing right now, and we have, and that's on, I think, um, 2/10 of an acre.
No
So,
kidding.
like 20% of an acre on there, I think it's 0.2. And then I have another one that's about a third of an acre that we're doing some quadplexes on, stacking on top of each other. And that's a 16 unit as well. But, those are tight on downtown. The townhome project that we're looking at developing, that would be 58 units on 6 acres. And then we had another 50 units on, I think it's 5.5 acres.
Okay.
So those are about 10,000 square foot lots.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
So,
Yes, it's an interesting space. I think it's known of as like infill as well when you're talking about
yes.
in the cityscapes there. Yeah, I'm really intrigued in that space. I'm looking at partnering with a group that's going to be doing that here in Phoenix as well, which to me just seems like a great opportunity to put really, good quality, maybe not high finishes, but more affordable or attainable housing for the folks that might not have the dollars to be looking at A-class property in the new build space. So,
Biggest challenge in those downtown properties is parking. So that's the biggest challenge. So when you're doing the multifamily down there, both those projects that we're doing, they cut out parking. And so, because you're allowed to cut out parking, and not that you
okay.
should cut out the parking, but you really can't
Yeah.
charge for the parking. So
Mm,
that's one of the things that gets cut out when you're in those metropolitan areas, which is, to me, it's a deterrent for why I would not want to live down there. But, for
yeah.
somebody, if you're going to just be walking around and never leaving down there, or if you have a good bus system or something to get you
Sure.
around, a train or bus system, then it makes more sense. My downtown does not. So it seems like a challenge.
Yeah. I think the units we're looking at here locally will have garages on the first floor and then build up vertical, like you're
Oh, that's
saying as well. So,
fantastic. See, that makes the most sense.
yeah. Well, let's if we can. I mean, clearly your superpower is construction. You've been doing this for 16 years, and clearly you've built a very successful business around it. But when investors are looking at, ultimately they want to know, how is this going to impact my passive investing journey? So I'd love to get your take on, like, what should passive investors be looking for when they see operators that are claiming either big developments or huge value add plans. Like, what kind of concerns or watch outs should we be looking for when we're talking construction in these areas?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's extremely important. When you're looking at a budget, typically, if someone's going and doing a heavy value add or development, upwards of 75% of the budget is going towards construction. So it's critical as a passive investor, you to understand, the operator and what's their relationship to understanding construction. One, do they have relationships with the builder? Two, have they done prior projects with them? Do they have a good relationship? Are they just bidding to the low bidder? How is everything being done? So it's extremely important to understand that, because that's how you can go way over budget and lose on a job. If you're investing with someone as an operator that doesn't have any development experience, and they're just bidding out and not putting a proper bid package together out to bidders, they probably are not going to get the proper pricing back, and therefore are going to be susceptible to large overages, probably beyond the contingency. So if they don't have experience to that, it's a major red flag. So you want to, one, know how much experience do they have in development, what's their relationship with the contractor, and are they doing a bid project or are they doing a design build project? So they're two different types. And so it's something that you kind of want to know, to see how they're building the project. If you're doing a design build project with a contractor, then you and the contractor are working together, designing the drawings, working on the site plan together, and basically pricing it as you're progressing through the design as a team.
Okay.
That contractor is helping you stay towards your initial budget all the way through design. And then can give you a guaranteed maximum price at the end of that design, and you know what you're getting through that design. The other route would be for an operator to go through the full design set of drawings and bid it out to contractors during the time frame, but fully control that design set,
Hmm.
meaning that the contractor has no say. He's just throwing a number. And when a contractor is just throwing a number, it's all based on what information is he getting. And he's going to try and put the lowest number that he can present together. Whether that number includes everything or not is a different story. It's how the operator is requesting the pricing is how he's going to get the quote presented to him. That's a whole different story. So that is something that you really want to understand and look out for. And that all becomes something that you can kind of hedge, as when you're looking at that major of a portion of the project cost, that you can kind of hedge and say, does this person know what they're doing for this aspect? Is it going to be a good investment for me? And are they really going to provide the return? So getting some initial answers on that should help clear up, for a passive investor, and give you a little level of comfort as they answer those questions.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it opens up a whole can of worms that,
Right.
like, most investors don't have the skill or the expertise to understand how to even ask those questions. So now I think it's interesting. I've heard of situations where contractors will actually partner with other groups to do development. So the contractors are truly handling the development portion. Then you might have somebody who's going to handle asset management after the asset's built, and then you have some kind of capital partner in that as well. And it seems like that could ideally be the best situation to bring people's superpowers together to create the best results. Is that a similar model to
Yes.
what you're using, or?
Yeah, that's exactly the model that we're using. I put my fee, so my fee towards I invest in the project with my fee. So that's how
Got it.
I embed myself into the project. It also makes our numbers, even perform better. Because as a contractor, you're going to put a guaranteed maximum price and then build it as inexpensive as possible. When I'm invested into the project and building it, I want to build it as great as possible because I'm invested into the project. So, still
Absolutely.
you want to keep your number as competitive as possible, but you're going to build it, top of the line, because you're the one that's holding on to it and you don't want to have any issues coming down the road. So you
That's
can
such a
address
great
all those
point.
things. But it
Yeah.
offers some advantages too, because when I am investing in a project, or you're dealing with an operator that has a builder on the team, typically we're not going to run over budget, because I'm going to make sure I don't run over budget when I'm building, because I'm doing this every day. So I'm going to
Yeah.
know all the things that are going to drive us over budget and hedge them as much as possible. And we'll put that contingency in there, but I'm not going to go over a contingency. And the only thing really that I would not know as a contractor that I could run into are going to be my site costs, unforeseen site costs. If there is
Sure.
something underground with the soil. If once I get my geotech study, before I get it, I might not know and have a contingency. Then we're going to get a study of soil, get into phase one, and get into some of these things that are going to tell us more things about the soil. Beyond that, we'll have everything narrowed in, and there should be very limited changes when you have a contractor on board with that team.
I love it. Yeah, and I suspect if you're working 8 different projects at one time and you're an actual partner in 2 of them, I suspect the ones that get the most of your attention would be the ones that you're an actual partner in as well. I suspect. So yeah,
well, yeah, I don't know that I would say that, I'm going to for sure give them 100% attention. I would say any project that I'm involved in, I'm going to give great attention. Me, I
yeah,
have limited role in the construction of any of them, and all of my people, we are very diligent about, our processes and how we do work to properly vet anybody that works here, and that they, live by our core values and stuff like that. So I would treat every project the same, whether I'm in it or not. But I do
yeah.
offer a lot more advantages for finding the savings when I'm invested. I would put it to you that way.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, duly noted. So thank you for that. Well, yeah, very good. I think it's an interesting concept. I love the idea. Personally, I like this infill development space and the small townhome space as well. Maybe we can spend a few minutes talking about what the next couple to 5 to 10 years look like, not only for your construction business, but where you see the economy and how that might impact this investment environment for the passive investor.
Okay. Sure. So the environment I see on the short term is not great, and it's going to be, market specific. So to paint it with a broad brush can be difficult. With a broad brush painting it, it's not going to be very good at all. There'll still be
Okay.
pockets and areas that won't do that bad. There's going to be pockets and areas that get decimated, basically, is how I would foresee it.
Okay.
There's a lot of different things happening, though. There's transition in home ownership with the build to rent communities that have really been popping up. So I see opportunity in the build to rent sector, and I think that's going to become more and more prevalent in the years to come. And home ownership is actually going to go down a little bit because of that. So that's going to be a challenge. I do think that the interest rates are probably going to go up a little bit more before they go down, and it's
Okay.
going to stagnate development, which is going to increase the cost of everything as far as the existing construction. So the values are going to be driven up because of the lack of development, because of the tightening of money and the lessening of construction and development is going to actually drive existing costs of everything up further. And so
Okay.
I do feel it's still a good time to invest because everything, in my opinion, I don't see massive values going down. I just see everything coming to a major halt,
Got
if
it.
that makes sense. I think in certain areas things are going to stop, and in certain areas there's been some overdevelopment, I would say, and the absorption rate is not great. But if you're in a good market, and there's plenty of good areas, the Southeast specifically, the Southwest is also good. Anywhere with good climate and close to the edge of the United States is going to thrive in this type of a market. And if
Yeah.
you're investing with someone, my main driver for the next 3-5 years is make sure you're investing with someone who's investing in quality real estate. What I mean by that is a piece of property that is in a perfect location. Not just a good piece of property, but the location is the prime location of the area. Whatever the area is, this is the prime location. You can't get a better location, because if you're doing that, then you are going to be okay. That's how I would
Love it.
look at it. So as long as if you're going to an outskirt of a town in somewhere that, it might be growing and it's been growing for the past 3 years and we see continued growth, that's not where I'm investing. Where I'm investing is just like we talked about, an infill lot that you can't get any more land. It's right in the middle, and this is the best piece of property. It's got a high traffic count. It's easy to access. It's got good visibility. These are all the things that are going to make a good real estate purchase right now. So if you're investing with someone that's investing in those type of assets, then you're doing good and you're going to win.
I love it. Love it. Really great advice. Like location is more important today than it has been in recent past, it sounds like.
Even if they're telling you it's not a huge and great return, but that's a good piece of real estate, then you're doing good. Because as long as you're investing in something like we just said a couple of moments ago, the value is going to go up in those areas. It's going to continue to drive up because there is just, when you're in these perfect places, that's where everyone wants to be. That's where the demand is. And there's limited space for anybody else to come in and sneak you out. Now, if there's a bunch of sparse land everywhere around this place, then that's not the right spot. I'm talking about where there's literally nowhere else to build except for this spot. Then, and it's in a good location, then you got a good piece.
I love it. Love it. Great advice. Thank you. Thank you for that perspective. I think it's good advice, especially as we're going into the times that we are today. And clearly, with your background and your experience, you've seen this before, and I'm sure we'll see it again for many, many times. Well, this has been a great conversation, Tony. Different than any other that I've had with other guests, but it's been nice to hear the construction company owner's perspective on where we are today and where we're going. Is there anything that I should have asked, or anything else that you'd care to share before we jump into our final questions? Or
Oh, I think that you did fantastic, and I appreciate you having me on. I know, construction is probably not on most of your listeners' minds, but it is extremely important. So it's extremely important to understand your operators as a passive investor on what the team entails. So a lot of these operators have someone that's doing construction or it handles construction management on the team. Same premise, right? As long as they're underwriting and they understand construction, those are big facets to that operations team. And so whenever you're dealing with someone, you kind of want to find out that they have every base covered and that they have experience on the table.
I love it. Yeah, I say it quite often. I think when you're looking at value add, these are very, very big construction projects, and there's really two facets: construction management and property management. If you can nail
Yep.
those two down, then odds are pretty good that you're going to have a good investment there. So, well, very good. Well, let's shift, if we can, to some questions that I like to ask everybody. Um, Remembering this is geared towards the passive investor, but if you want to step outside of that with construction being your core, then we can certainly do that. So, are there any particular educational resources or books or podcasts that you're paying close attention to these days to continue to refine your business or refine your mindset, or anything along those lines?
I am constantly reading books and listening to podcasts. So, but I'm all over the map. So I listen to anything and everything. Right now, I'm reading a book called Driven. I just started. Um, and I'm reading a book called Ikigai, which is, so I'm reading the two at once. Ikigai is basically defining your purpose in life. And so it's extremely interesting for anyone really on that facet of the book, that what are you living your life for, and life happiness, and how do you find life happiness? And it's focused around a couple areas, specifically in Japan, where Ikigai comes from, and how they are one of the longest living people in the world. And why do they live
Interesting.
so long? And it's because of
Uh-huh.
their defining understanding of life and what they're doing and how they live their life. And, they're very active into their 90s. So to me, it's a very interesting read and very important. And then Driven, I'm reading about, which is, I'm very interested in understanding people and their dynamics and what, they bring. From 4 to 10 years old, we embed certain things in our brain, and then you have strength traits that you basically have naturally for the rest of your life, and some that you don't. So some people have a visionary trait, some have an integrator trait, some are great with performing paperwork and understanding stuff, and some are great with ideas. Other great at putting the ideas into practice. So I love finding that out about different people, and that's what that book is about.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing both of those. I believe I've heard of Driven, but not Ikigai. That is intriguing to me. I've done some research or reading about the centurion population, the 100+ year olds, and
Yep.
what their lives look like, and it sounds like that might tie to that. I'll have to check that
That's
one out.
exactly
Very
what it'll
cool.
tie to. Yep. So it goes
Okay.
in all the different areas, but it's very interesting to hear. And as a person, I set my age of when I'm going to die. So I'm going to die at 134. So that's what I would say. So I would ask you, when do you plan on dying? What's your age?
So my wife and I have a pretty specific plan. I'm going to be 105 and she'll be 100, and our dogs will be in their 60s by then. But
My goodness,
no,
you've got the
yeah, no,
dogs into consideration.
that's more my wife than I. But no, our goal is to be, centurions, live 100+ years old, and I don't think there's any reason why you can't, with all of the new technology and all of the the new learnings that everybody's having when you start looking at functional medicine. If you take care of yourself and you stay away from treating the symptoms and don't get the symptoms, then hopefully we can all live 100+. Is my thought. So
Love it. Yep, that's
very
fantastic,
good.
Randy.
All right. So now I know you and I are both part of a community that focuses at least one of our pillars is on bucket list adventures. So I'm curious, do you have any recent bucket list items that you've checked off your list, or do you have any that you're hoping to in the near future?
Um, I I just got challenged, so I've always wanted to get my pilot's license, and I just got challenged by a buddy of mine who's getting his pilot license to go ahead and get mine. So that's something I'm going to fast track in, I think. And the other thing, yeah, with the Go Abundance, I'm going to Vermont. I'm going to do snowmobiling, which I've never done. So I'm going to get to check that off the bucket list. So
Bucket
those
list
are, I guess, my
adventures.
two
Very
big
good.
ones right now.
Yeah, fantastic. Maybe you could fly your plane up to future Go Abundance events, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know about that just yet, but we'll see. Someday I'll
Baby
get that.
steps. Baby steps.
That jet. Yeah, I mean, I figure if I learn to fly, then I'll be motivated to learn to be able to buy one.
There you go. There you go. I love it. All right. And then final question that I've asked in just the last couple of months, but if you were to invest 100 grand today and you could not invest it in your own deal, where would you place that capital?
In industrial flex development.
Love it. Love it. In
Yeah.
your specific market or some other market?
There's plenty of good markets. It just depends. But yeah, there are a lot of good markets. Pretty much anywhere in the Southeast, I would invest in industrial flex development. So I have friends that are in the space in Florida and Mississippi and Alabama, and they're all doing well. The only other thing I think I really like the idea of investing in, if I was going to invest for long-term hold, is I would invest in multifamily development where it was going to be refinanced into HUD housing financing, and depending on how that cracked out, because you'd be able to get your money back and have long-term cash flow. So I like that
Love it.
idea.
Yeah, both great strategies. One, industrial flex, I've been dancing around for years. I need to just dig into that one a little bit more and find some operators there. But yeah, thank you so much. Well, this has been a great conversation, Tony. Can you share with the audience how they can find you if they'd be interested in investing in some of the projects you're working on, or just want to connect with you to hear more about construction, I guess?
Yeah, sure. They can go to timelesspropertiescc.com and just reach out to me there, or timelessci.com. You can contact me there too. Either page.
Fantastic. Well, Tony, thank you so much. Again, it's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed having you on the show. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Audience, as always, want to thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again next Thursday for another great episode. And please consider liking or subscribing our podcast and YouTube. So thank you so much again for joining us today, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.